Good morning, everybody. I am Gooey Lawrence here on Goo Morning Zyathé. Let's go ahead and bring in some guests because I'm definitely not holding up this show all by myself. Everybody, welcome. We are glad to have you here. It is cold in Colorado, which is why I'm bundled up like this. So I actually had this really cute outfit all set aside and whatnot. And then I was like, you know what? We're going to hard pass on that one. So how's the weather at where you guys are at?
Cloudy.
Yeah, cloudy and cool.
Nice.
Hot and humid.
Okay, there we go. I'm pretty sure what it is that Alphinius and Camera Mandy just sent us some of the weather from England over there, and that's basically what's going on. So appreciate you guys for that. So obviously, I am not Alphinius, and Jenn is not Camera Mandy, and Donny and Andrea are Donny and Andrea. So we did get those. So we're at 2 out of 4. They are over right now at the UK Games Expo, I think is what it's called.
Yes.
Yep. They're over there. They're having the time of their life. Camera Mandy gave me an announcement that her feet hurt. So apparently that was important for the entire internet to know that. So there you guys go. But definitely if you guys are over in the UK, go on over and check them out. And in 2 weeks, you guys will have your regular shenanigans back. But until then, I am still the owner and operator of Gooey Cube until they get back. I've made some executive decisions. I've made some moves. I'm thinking about taking it public.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm in discussions right now. We'll kind of see what happens. But with that, let's go ahead and go through some announcements. I totally minimized my notes for some reason because I thought that'd be a good idea. So let me pull those up. But Donny and Andrea,
from the hip because Mandy loves that.
What'd you say?
We could shoot from the hip because Mandy loves that.
Camera Mandy does love that. Camera Mandy, this little section's for you because I was outing you. The problem is you're really good at your job, which means that you like to improvise a lot, but you hate when other people improvise. So just, maybe work on that. Maybe do some self-assessment, some mindfulness exercises. We may give you some things to, help you on out. So we'll definitely see about that. Donny and Andrea, do you guys want to talk to us about what you guys got going on?
Sure. The biggest thing we're working on right now is Tacticon coming up August 23rd. Putting games in the schedule, building all kinds of things. We have a new event that I'm excited to offer with the huge support of our former con, Casey. Mm-hmm. We are doing, I think I decided that we're calling it Megamex.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys are Battletech players, but if you are, a long time ago, I went to a Gen Con and saw mechs that were about a foot tall and wanted all of them. And they wouldn't give them to me or sell them to me. So we decided.
You bought the company.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
We bought Catalyst Game Labs.
I bought Catalyst. That's the announcement. No, I decided that we would make our own. So we are having big stompies, which is what I lovingly call them. Big Stompy Battletech with foot-large mechs that we're playing on the floor like we're 4 years old.
The battle for the floor begins once more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're working on that. Here's an example. One of the mechs we're working on.
Ooh.
We've got about 20 somewhere. We'll have about 25 for the show.
Nice. I really love how the Arby does what the gaming community does, just for way more expensive. But it's just, we do the exact same thing where we build little things and then try and go through and play games in order to pretend like we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
What
do you want to add anything about that?
No, we have a lot of the same space. So, Tacticon is more miniatures focused.
Historically, yeah.
Yeah, historically. So there's going to be a lot more miniatures games there. So there's lots of, stuff to just come look at. Mm-hmm. Even if you're not a miniatures gamer. But we'll have everything from Star Wars to Battletech to Bolt Action.
We might have some War Machine.
We might have some War Machine. I'm definitely bringing my War Machine. So if anybody wants to throw down on Mark IV, I might, slice out an hour or two to do that. Tacticon's really a great space for Andre and I to not just run a convention, but actually play with people too. Genghis Khan is, 100 miles an hour, but Tacticon is
only 80 miles an hour.
Only 80 miles an hour. Yeah.
Nice. So definitely more of a sci-fi theme versus like fantasy.
No, there's still. I mean, we'll still have scale bringing Adventures League. We still have. I think currently I have about 50 RPGs on the schedule.
Okay.
ranging from, every system that you can imagine. So it's very similar to Genghis, but on a smaller scale. And since it's on a smaller scale, we can give the miniatures community the space that they need.
Okay, awesome.
And there will still be space for, Gooey Cube people to come play their games.
Absolutely.
Nice. Sounds good. I'm just going to throw it out there. I think I am so vanilla of a game player because, like, I consider myself very experienced in Dungeons and Dragons, but then when I hear about all the other games, I'm sitting there, I'm just like, man, I am just a newbie in this space. So I appreciate you guys for humbling me. Awesome. And then, so give us the dates for that again. And then is there a link that I can throw up in the chat?
Sure. It's always going to be, like, for both conventions at gamergirlgames.com.
Okay.
And whichever convention's coming up will be the prize that you find. But the dates are August 24th through 27th.
Yeah.
Something like that.
27th is my birthday, so maybe I'll
25 is mine.
Oh, there we go. Cheers for the August birthdays. Everybody who has an August birthday today in the chat gets a free pat on the back. So thank you, Donny and Andrea, for letting us know about TacTicon, and make sure to check that out at gamergirlgames.com. Gamergirlgames.com. Awesome. For Gooey Cube updates, Dungeons of Dunix is almost complete, whatever that means. No idea. And then they're having a blast in Europe, and they're meeting a lot of new amazing people. So that's all that's going on. Jen, go ahead and give us your announcements.
I'm here. That's all I got.
Unprepared, Jen. Gosh. All right. The troublemaker of the group. Absolutely. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get into our discussion for today. We do want to go ahead and put out a trigger warning, essentially. We're going to be talking about mental health in gaming today. We're going to have a pretty broad section that we're going to cover. My experience has always been that being honest and vulnerable in this space really helps people actually be able to connect and understand not the kind of cookie cutter solutions or situations that really kind of get put out there, but really like the real life situations. Because of that, there are going to definitely be certain parts of conversations that are going to get a little bit deep. They may be a little bit inappropriate for kids. And then it may also tap into some of the real life problems that people are having in the audience. And so we just want to put out there like, hey, heads up. That's how the conversation is going to lead today. Does anybody want to add in anything that I might have missed kind of going over that?
No, I think we're good.
Awesome. Sounds good. So kicking off our discussion today, as I was going through and I was researching out statistics, I forgot to write them all down. So, as one does, I wanted to go through and put out some statistics that kind of cover what mental health in the United States kind of looks like. From Jen will obviously be able to spout some stuff off about that. But essentially it looks like basically about 25% of Americans have some kind of mental health condition. And then from what I understood from that, about 50% of that number was essentially untreated or undiagnosed. So people who were suffering but weren't actually going over and seeking out help for those different conditions. And the other asterisk, as I was trying to look through and verify this stuff, was that all of those numbers, the numbers for 2023 were collected in 2020, which was COVID. And so all of that made it very difficult to actually collect any information. And a lot of people expect the numbers to be a lot higher than that. Jen, can you back any of that up? Does any of that sound about correct?
Yeah, I'm not going to go into specific numbers just because I don't have that data in front of me. But yeah, it's definitely on the rise. And a lot of those people who are untreated don't even necessarily know they have issues. When you've been masking your whole life, especially like for women, I think a lot of these ADHD and autism and things like that, they didn't even start doing research on those till the late 80s, early 90s. And it wasn't until the late 90s, early 2000s before they really were able to process that data properly and peer review that. So there's a lot of people who don't know what's going on, and they've masked their whole lives, or their parents have just taught high to this. You just act a certain way and you'll be fine. And you might have learned that in your workplace from your bosses too, like don't do this, do this. So a lot of people don't even know what they're fighting with. And I think, and also to add to that, I don't think there's a single person I've ever met who couldn't benefit from mental health care and having a safe space to express those things in. So, but that's a mind shift. That's a mind shift for a lot of us. So.
Oh yeah. So reason I go over that is to basically say that since most D&D groups are probably somewhere between 5 to 6 people, you probably have at least one person at your table who's going through some stuff. So the goal is today is to talk about like can we go through and create an environment. First of all, encourage people about the benefits of playing tabletop role-playing games and all the different and just all the different benefits that you can have from getting into that community and being able to plug in, and then being able to hopefully give people some tools to be able to spread awareness, to be able to help support each other. So with that, I totally blast through the part where we're supposed to like introduce ourselves. So we're going to go ahead and knock that out right now. Jenn, you're not in the spotlight. I'm going to go ahead and take the hot seat first. Hi, so I'm Gooey Lawrence. I'm Cameron Mandy's brother. That's how I got this gig, just through pure nepotism. My profession right now is I'm a Special Forces Green Beret, and I'm currently transitioning out of the military and looking at getting in construction management. So I'm going through college right now, and it is the worst. But I'm having some fun with it, so that's pretty good. And my experience with mental health essentially started in high school. Started seeing a counselor, started seeing a therapist. When I was going through high school, it felt like the treatments that me and all of my friends were receiving was essentially, they were like, oh, hey, you're a teenager. Here's a bipolar disorder diagnosis. And here's every antidepressant that we can possibly put you on. And so what I called it was the antidepressant roulette, because it literally felt like we were just cycling through everything that was out there. Whenever I've had new counselors or new therapists ask me about like, what was all the stuff around? I start listing off. They're like, they put you on that as a high schooler. And I was just like, yes, like, I definitely feel like mental health medicine has come so far since then. Joining the military definitely helped put a lot of structure into my life, but then I started suffering from suicidal ideations. And as I continued to work through that, I was in the 2021 pullout of Afghanistan, where the Army went in and pulled out, and ended up getting PTSD from that, as it presents an anxiety for me. And I got an ADHD diagnosis as an adult too. So I've definitely had a long history of working through this from just a personal perspective. My family has had a lot of different mental health conditions. And so I've definitely wanted to be able to come on here and help facilitate just a conversation of what my personal journey has been, and hopefully just help people be able to understand how to better support one another. So I told the panelists I was going to get pretty deep into my backstory. You guys do not need to get that deep in, but let's go ahead and hit up Donny and Andrea.
You first.
Me first. All right. So my name is Donny Arnold. I actually work in the heating and air conditioning industry as my full-time gig. I manage a team at Johnson Controls, who's like one of the largest heating and air conditioning companies in the world. Warren Johnson is the guy that invented the thermostat, if that gives you any scope.
Thank you to that man.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'll be working these next few years trying to get Gooey Lawrence a job doing construction management on the HVAC and installation side of things.
And folks, that is how quickly you can network.
Right. So we're always looking for people like you, definitely to manage our projects and things like that. If it doesn't work out there, we have a wide network of partners. I'm sure that you'll fit in somewhere.
You're looking for a lot of neurospicy nerds?
Yeah, more of the. I would rather work with gaming nerds than anybody else on the planet. I mean, there's no doubt about it. If I get a resume thrust in front of me and they make an allusion towards any type of gaming, I'm definitely more interested in someone like that.
That's because they just let their personality through. Like that was like one of the aspects of it. And can we all agree that like nerds have our own thieves' cant language to like help like feel out like, all right, let me see where like somebody else is at and whatnot. It's pretty great.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like the old adage where if you have something up on your computer screen at work and it's gaming stuff, and somebody who's not a gamer walks by your computer and says, "What's that?"
PG.
Oh. It's much easier to explain that it's porn than it is gaming. Gaming is one of the most difficult things I've felt to explain to what I would call non-gamers. So I've been a hobbyist for a long time, since the early 80s. I've met probably, I don't know, 1,000 people across my table over the course of that many years. And I say that small of a number because, that's how long I like to keep groups together. But people do come and people do go. So I've seen a wide audience.
And conventions.
And conventions, yeah, conventions. I don't say the conventions don't count, but you typically have the longevity. So we started going to conventions because there was a drought in gamers. And we needed to find people that wanted to play the same stuff as us. So we would go to conventions and meet people who just really wanted to hardcore focus on gaming like we did. So
absolutely appreciate you.
You meet a lot of different personalities.
Oh yeah, for sure. Andrea?
My name is Andrea, rhymes with mitochondria.
Will you please correct me every time I say it wrong?
It's a hard one because everybody knows an Andrea, an Andrea, or whatever. I'm Andrea. It rhymes with mitochondria. I am a former middle school, high school, and assistant principal, teacher and assistant principal. And now my full-time gig is Gamer Girl Games.
Nice.
Yeah. I am definitely the ADD girl. You'll see it. I won't sit still. I'll be taking notes, all of that, learning all of the things that we do. And I would say in terms of gaming, I mean, he and I have been gaming together for 30 years. So
solid run.
So when he says that we've had thousands of people at his table, I'm almost always at that same table, almost. And so we've definitely had the full spectrum of folks come across, and I say with no small mention that I know that gaming has in many ways saved my life, and I know gaming has in many ways saved his. And a lot of the people that we've played with, I mean, a good chunk of our players are veterans, and I know the power that has. So gaming is absolutely a passion for me for multiple reasons. So that's my background. I don't like talking about myself. So
no, totally fine. And last up we have Jenn.
Hi, so I'm Jennifer. You often see me in the chat going justice for Fleegan. Just throwing that out there. Thanks. I work at a college campus in student affairs, and we're in orientation season, so there's a lot of conceal under these eyes right now. And I work with students in all kinds of situations every day. I have a lot of really great students that come see me every morning and tell me all kinds of things in their life, and I love it. My own son's turning 20 soon. Yeah, Fleegan. So I always joke that I grew up one kid to adopt 300 more. So I really enjoy it. It's tiring at times, but it's great. And I'm also a grad student at that same college going for counseling myself. I really want to, I like trauma counseling. I really want to work with prisoners and work on making more of a rehabilitation model, kind of similar to the way New Zealand does things. And I'm a big proponent for fighting to outlaw privatized prisons. That's kind of my goal in life. So really working the hard routes here. And I think I've loved psychology since I was a kid. I grew up in an alcoholic family. My husband grew up in an alcoholic and addictions family. And so I often felt very not understood in my life. And I think trying to understand motivations and what other people are doing in their lives was a survival mechanism. Being hypervigilant, trying to read other people for their clues, trying to understand why people do things was a way to survive. And unfortunately, when you come from a childhood like that, you also make some poor decisions. So I've had a violent marriage. I've had all kinds of issues. I had suicidal ideation all through high school and college, eating disorders. And my whole life has been nothing but smiling depression and anxiety. most people see me as somebody very outgoing, very bright. A lot of people think I was some kind of cheerleader. I was not some kind of cheerleader. I was the misfit in my school, right? I think gaming helped me quite a bit. I found it when I was 16 on, now I'm going to date myself, AOL's RDI, Red Dragon Inn system. Stumbled into a chat room one day, had no clue what White Wolf was, and just jumped right in the deep end. And I went from White Wolf to D&D, and then my first husband was military, and that's when I found the Mech Warrior role-playing system. One of my favorites, Shadowrun. We played Hellsing one time. That was a lot of fun. So there's a lot of different systems, and that's when I really found my love for that. But DMing rooms and running rooms on, before we had all these great platforms, it was MIRC was the big one. And I helped run a lot of rooms in there under the moniker Blood Bond. And it was great, but having the responsibility of other players that depended upon me and having those people that liked to see me and wanted to talk to me every day was kind of pushed me through, because I didn't want to let them down. And sometimes it just takes having somebody that sees something in you or having that responsibility to someone that can really pull you through. So also a lot of music saved my life. So I hope I can repay that for other people.
Absolutely. Do you want to know a funny military secret?
Yeah.
So do you know that the military uses Merc?
Yes.
Yeah. So literally on our
Yeah.
secret systems, you have Merc because it's just a very bare bones messaging system, which makes it very secure. And there's actually a really secret channel called Trebek where you can play Jeopardy on a classified secret system. It's pretty great. Only the real OGs know about Trebek though. So
Yeah.
So getting into our discussions, obviously the only tools to address mental health is diet, exercise, and sleep, right, Jen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Tell us about, you have some experience with how tabletop role-playing games are being used in a more clinical and professional setting and stuff, and just kind of share what you know about that.
I'm not going to claim I'm an expert here. I'm not licensed. I would like to reiterate again, I'm a student. And that's
This is
just
all
for
personal
someday.
experience, everybody. This is everybody's
Someday
personal
when
experience.
I'm going to go in front of a licensing board someday. I would just like that moniker there. And eventually when I go for my PhD, this is what I'm hoping I might do my dissertation in. So I'm still in the early stages here. Got another 20 years of research ahead. But a lot of situations are using these. It's great in schools. I see it in the college level. I see it now. I was the advisor for a tabletop gaming group, and I'm now advising one that's literally just tabletop gaming and doesn't include any other kinds of gaming. You see students going through things all the time. Their classes are hard. They're struggling with personal demons, professors they don't get along with, roommates they don't get along with. But when they're at the D&D table, they've got literal dragons they can slay. They've got puzzles they can solve. It's a winnable outcome. It's something they can use to build that confidence. And if they can confide in you and tell you things, now we shouldn't play armchair psychologist. But if they're in this situation and they're capable of it, and you give them a similar puzzle in that game, and their character does it, and you're like, see, you can conquer that. And they're like, well, that was Paladin the Great over here. Well, Paladin the Great over here is still you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've met a person who's made a character that doesn't have some tiny little shard of their personality in it. I know every single one of mine is some fraction personality shard that I've built on, because those personal experiences and those personal truths, I think, build that depth of character. And so we're seeing it in high school clubs. I've got friends who work in let's just call them rougher schools and rougher areas, some more at-risk youth, and these D&D clubs are popping up, or just tabletop gaming clubs are popping up, and it's giving these students community, which is really important. It gives them characters that they can use the way actors use characters to hide behind, or instruments for musicians, right? You feel safer when there's something in front of you just a little bit distancing you. And it gives them a place where they can explore those ideas and try out those personality traits. And really kind of come into their own. It's a safe space where it doesn't feel personal, but you can explore personal issues. As somebody who does want to work in the prisons, I'm really interested to see how that relates as we go up into a more institutionalized places like that. Clearly, we wouldn't play rogues because stealing is wrong, and so is murder. So we will not play rogues at that table. You know, I think it's gonna be mostly like druids and paladins, and
Yeah.
maybe some magic users, right? But you know, being able to give them different roles where maybe they spent their childhoods in low socioeconomical situations, maybe they had family that passed them around a lot. You see that a lot. Then that's how they get into gangs and these different groups because they find the love they didn't have. So while they may have had choices, their situation made them feel like there was no choice. You know, I feel like there's no place for me, so what's the point? And you can go on Netflix and watch any true crime show you want on there, and then you hear about this tragic childhood, and everybody's like, I don't know where we went wrong. So those themes can get then explored in a safe game setting where they realize, like, you know, I don't have to be the murder hobo, right? I can solve this through discourse and really make those challenges around finding a different way to deal with things in a healthy way. And then being able to then talk about it after, like, what did you just learn there? Oh, I learned I could solve that puzzle. Yeah, but how did you do that? You know, so it's a way to do something that's personal without making it feel personal. And it can sometimes reveal to people that they're capable of more than they think they are. And then when they can relate that to you know, it's kind of that we've used role play in therapy forever. You know, how many times talk to me like I'm your boss, tell me that you need a raise. Let's role play this, right? This is a way to do that without being so direct and forward and formal. So I think it's really useful in that. But I think we're just scratching the surface of what all these can do. You know, not just D&D. I mean, I think some of the higher fantasies are, you have to pick and choose some of them. Shadowrun is not necessarily your greatest one because it's kind of dark utopia. I don't think anybody's a hero in that game. That's the fun of it, right? But that's also doesn't make it as useful in a clinical setting. So yeah, and then being able to find people's interests and draw out those personality traits and showing them those are the things that they want to exalt and they want to show the world. It's a really useful tool, and it falls under that creative play therapy side of things. But most of that research has been done with kids, so it's interesting to see as it's growing through adults.
Absolutely. Hey, Donny and Andrea, what kind of things have you guys seen kind of doing inside of that whole con circuit and stuff like that, as far as utilizing tabletop role-playing games, maybe for outside of just the express purpose of having fun, but just to help elevate people's lives?
I would say one of the things that I'm most passionate about with the conventions is that, I mean, because I remember the first time I went to a convention was back in the day where there weren't very many female gamers. There were not very many women gamers at all. So I was super nervous, and I got used to being the only girl at the table. And so I know what it felt like to feel slightly different, but have this passion that I wanted to play with other people. And so for me, I would say at the conventions, we work really hard. People will email us and say, we just recently had someone who said, I have autism. Here are the accommodations I would like. Can you please share this with the GMs, right? So making sure that everybody in the community that comes to our convention knows that if you've never played, there's a safe space, that our red shirts are there to help you. Like, I will sit down with you for 5 minutes and introduce you to the players at your table. Like, we'll help you with your accommodations. Especially if you advocate for them ahead of time, right? Which is hard. Learning to advocate for yourself is really hard. But I would say that's probably the biggest thing that we've seen at our conventions. And then I've watched people just come out of their shell. I mean, I ran D&D clubs and played Magic with my students when I was in public education. That was my jam, right? And you'd see the quietest kid just blossom out of their shell, or you'd see the angriest kid just chill out a little bit, right? And we see that at the conventions. You see somebody who walks in and is scared, and then by the end of a convention, they're sitting around in a group of people chatting and having a great time. So I've seen it make people feel like they have a place. And that they can kind of find their tribe, for lack of a better word. whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of the reasons why I love doing what I do.
Yeah, a lot of the reasons you won't see us like at Genghis Khan around the Great Gooey Game Show. I know we alternate our time there because we are literally facilitating people who don't want to be near the noise,
Mm-hmm.
and finding them spaces to play that are quiet, comfortable, and in a space where they can
Less sensory overload.
Yeah, less sensory overload. So we do get a lot of those sorts of requests during that time. And then other loud games that that have alarming noises that go on during them, facilitating the people that don't want to be near that sort of thing is a lot of the work that most folks don't see us do.
We had a GM run a intro to D&D for neurodivergent folks as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was the title of the game.
Nice.
Right. So I mean, it's a big deal for us.
Yeah.
What are some of the solutions? I mean, this is so having been to conventions and stuff like that. The last convention that I helped out with was over at PAX South, and the Gooey Cube booth was literally across from like a video game demo where they were purposefully blasting their music as loud as possible. So again, they're trying to get attention of customers essentially and stuff. So we're on the other side there, and all of us are hoarse by the end of it. So what are some of the solutions that you've come up with that whole sensory overload? Especially in a convention space, but are there any solutions that you guys have also come up with that you're like, oh, this would be something great to do at home also?
4 walls and a door.
Yeah.
That's the biggest solution that we've found. And just being able to fit that into the schedule.
A separate room is literally the best solution that we have found.
Mm-hmm.
But that gets difficult. I would say again, if somebody knows that they get sensory overload,
Mm-hmm.
That self-advocating thing, again,
Yeah.
it's hard, but it's so important.
Mm-hmm.
That I would say that's probably the biggest one.
Like the number one tool that we've put into people's hands is the color of this shirt.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that anybody that's a staff member is easily identifiable, and that if you need something, you don't always have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the red shirts, myself included, we seek out that sort of thing. If we see a frowny face, we're going to say, "Hey, you guys having a good time over here? Is there anything
do you have everything that you need?"
Yeah, do you have everything you need? Is this space working out for you? So
Mm-hmm.
just that level of visibility. It's Andrea's probably her best idea for the conventions was to make us all visible,
Mm-hmm.
so that somebody could find a staff member to get them to the right place. It's one thing that we've noticed at many other conventions that you just don't see. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
You go to Gen Con, it's easy to find the security. They're standing in front of the door checking your badge.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're having an issue at a table, I mean, finding a staff member at Origins, Gen Con, I don't want to name any of the smaller ones because they're all volunteer basis. So, the bigger ones, it's a lot more difficult. And we thought, well, how inclusive is that, to leave, assistance out? What if somebody needs help getting through a door? Who do they ask? The security guard checking badges?
Mm-hmm.
No, there should be somebody roaming the halls all the time.
Who's aware of the variety of issues that people might
Mm-hmm.
have. I think that's the other key component, is that all of our red shirts are sensitive to almost any issue that could possibly come up. I mean, because between all of us, I think we've encountered or experienced every issue that we've seen at the convention, just about. Right?
Absolutely.
So broad personal experience. I think that's the best thing that we've been able to do. I agree.
Absolutely. Can I put a pause in this real quick? We actually have a special guest.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey,
I don't
welcome
know how
from
good
the
the-
other side.
Yeah. Hey, am I frozen?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. Alphinius is over here making a sale. So, hi.
Hey, say hi to everybody. Everybody, the entire
Hello,
world.
friend.
The stream has grown so much since you guys have been gone. What's up, John?
Yeah.
You're live to the internet.
Hi, Mom. Yeah. Who is this? Is this Lauren?
This is Good Morning, Zyathé.
Good morning, Zyathé. Yes, actually, here it is good afternoon and good evening. Yes, because we're about to have dinner. We're having a great time. But,
Absolutely.
I'm trying to.
Camera skills, yes. Anyway, see you all. We're having a great time. Wish you were here with us. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now your adventures be sticky, my friend.
Have a heart. Love you guys so much.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Those are two of my employees rudely interrupting, our conversation over here.
Yes, but you don't want to just turn them away. You tell them, you've already interrupted, so you may as well.
Oh yeah, precisely. Exactly. Jenn, did you want to kind of talk about especially, I guess, what would we call these? Would we call these inclusive measures? Would we call these, especially, let's go ahead and just talk like in a convention space right now.
Sure. I most of my convention experience comes around Gen Con. I have trouble in crowds, and it took about 5 years for my husband to convince me to go to my first Gen Con in 2019. So, and now I love it. And it looks like we're going to have to miss it this year. And I literally cried. It was my favorite 4 days in the world. I think some of the biggest advocates have to come from the people who have it themselves, but also their family and their friends. Because I think a lot of us have been told that we're seeking attention, and I would like to first put in there what's wrong with attention. Everybody wants attention at some point. It's just as long as it's not at the detriment of others, right? But we get labeled as a problem, as an annoyance. I think it's only just changing now, especially. I mean, a lot of us have faced things in workplaces, right? I want accommodations, and HR is like, that sounds like a lot of work, right? But there are things that you can do as a person to make things easier. For instance, when it comes to noise, there's a lot of earpieces that are marketed to people who are a little neurospicy or have issues. There are name brands like Loop, but if you get them a little cheaper, if you look for what they call DJ earbuds, it's the same thing. They're just not as fashionable, but they tend to be cheaper, and you can find them at places around that sell musical equipment usually. And then I think inclusion rooms are great, but I think that we tend to focus on the same 2 or 3 things, and we've seen that at Gen Con where they've done a few rooms, but we could do better. We could do a lot better. There's more things that we can use, but we're also limited by space, and we're limited by resources, and we're limited by volunteers and people, and somebody's always going to get left out of that conversation. So I think as long as the intentions are good and as we're always trying, that's fantastic. But, it was in 2019 before I knew much. My son had said something really loud in my ear, and suddenly everything around me was a blur. And I didn't know what to call it. My husband knew enough to just kind of put his hand on my back and give me somewhere where I could just be mindful and focus. And then I went to look for a video, and I was like, hey, the closest thing I've found there's gotta be something on YouTube that's close to my experience. I don't know what to call this. And it was an autism, sensory overload video. This is what it's like for me. And I was like, yeah, it's like that, but I don't have autism. And then I've been working in college, at 42 years old, just get diagnosed as ADHD because I'm working with people around me. I'm like, and then as I'm talking to somebody else, and it was just like, oh yeah, the overload and everything else. So, yeah, it's like this, but I don't have autism, but darn, you have that self-realization. So I think the biggest thing for everybody around you when you see people melting down is, and this goes double at your tables, give them the benefit of that doubt. They might have something they are absolutely not aware of. I've got this rule I live in my life, the rule of 5, I call it, but it applies to everything. I don't know what happened 5 years ago, 5 months ago, 5 weeks ago, 5 hours ago, 5 minutes ago, 5 seconds ago, that has made this person come up to me like this and think that this behavior is okay, but it's not about me, and I'm not going to take it personal. Are you okay? Do you need something? If you see people struggling, don't just walk by, help people out. We're all in this. That's what I love about Gen Con is it's so inclusive. I sit down at a crafting table and I'm struggling, and the person next to me who's not even teaching it is helping me because they've got that step down. In the hall, I saw somebody in a Kaylee costume from Firefly. I was like, Kaylee! And she literally ran over with candy, strawberry candies in the box. It was great. And I took candy from a stranger. I loved this. This was great. And nobody cared that I was neurospicy. Nobody cared that I was too much. Nobody cared that I got excited about this thing and I talked about it for an hour. So remembering what's important and coming from a place of just compassion, informed empathy, that's a lot. That is a lot to people who in their lives, their bosses tell them that they've got to learn to shut up. that they've got to learn to be quieter, that they need to learn to sit still. That's huge. That right there in and of itself can make someone feel like they belong on this planet still. You just don't know. So
absolutely. I'm definitely gonna kind of thinking, coming from that perception, I really wonder if there's a way to go through. Yeah, have you guys seen like the silent dance parties kind of thing where basically everybody wears headphones and stuff? I'm gonna see if I can brainstorm something for you guys for Genghis Khan to basically have it where tables just all headphoned and mic'd up to go through, block everything out, but they can still hear everybody. Because I think that's one of the things that I definitely kind of the point of view that I come through for a lot of this stuff, especially being, in special forces operations, is it's really easy to identify what's wrong with a lot of things, but then being able to actually also provide a solution that is actionable is like the other half of that is not easy. And that's one of the hardest things when, it is talking about like, oh yeah, if we could just go through and just get them in a separate room. Well, the people rented out the space that they have, based off. And so there are just a lot of physical limitations to that. And that's where definitely, I think there's such a great, that's where essentially there has been a great opportunity for the nerd community who are experts in all kinds of different, crazy wazoo or solutions, to go through and present opportunities to go over and, whether it's devices, whether or not it's systems, whether or not it's just different control measures in order to help enable people to be able to enjoy this thing that we love. So that's something I'm going to be thinking. That's going to be one of my many side projects that I have for June and July over there, Donny and Andrea. For one of the things that I kind of want to talk about, because we're identifying these different individuals who have different, they're presenting to, as I formulate my thoughts here from all the coffee and Adderall I've had this morning. So there's kind of like two ways to this. A is somebody has identified some of their needs and have presented it to their table, essentially saying, hey, if you guys can go through and assist me with these things, it'll help me be able to be a really good, productive member of this group. And then the other aspect of it is obviously the table having an individual who is experiencing possibly sensory overload, possibly anxiety, possibly all these different things. What comments or what kind of thoughts do you guys have on spreading awareness of these just different conditions that exist, and then different coping mechanisms, and then spreading harmful stereotypes? How do we prevent spreading harmful stereotypes but still present awareness for individuals? And I know Jen's gonna have something to say about this, so I'm gonna go ahead and kick her off.
I'll use myself as an example.
Andrea beat you out, Jen.
Yeah. I'll use myself as an example. I'm a fidgeter. I don't sit well, and RPGs last 4 hours at a convention. So I learned that in order to be completely engaged, I had to take ridiculous notes. Almost, and when I say ridiculous notes, I mean like I can write verbatim an entire conversation that's happening around me if I need to. But the other thing that I learned was just to bring knitting or crochet. And I didn't know that was offensive to one of the GMs that I was playing with at a convention, right? And so I show up with my crochet, and I'm literally just doing a little crochet bag, and I'm totally engaged with you. My hands are not, right? But I am totally engaged. And I had offended the GM because they thought I wasn't paying attention. And so I learned, like, for me, a simple thing is, hey, this is my accommodation. Can I use this? Right? And saying, I'm still engaged. Will it bother anybody if I sit and crochet at the table? And most people are like, oh no, go ahead. But saying that ahead of time was huge. But I didn't know that until somebody said, hey, are you engaged or are you ignoring me? It wasn't like I was grabbing my phone, right? So that's one of those things, little things that you can do.
Yeah, she asks me every time, is it okay if I knit while we game? Yeah, it's fine. It was the last time too.
One big aspect that I definitely want to let people know as far as different point of views. Hey, appreciate it. The Van Takar who just rated us with 9 viewers.
Nice.
I have no idea who you are, but we appreciate you guys. One thing that I definitely want to share for people, because especially there's a lot of people who have different physics or they have different ways to stay engaged while our while we're going through and playing. Obviously, the first step of that, of just having some communication to the DM, is a huge step to be able to getting what you need in order to enjoy the game. From a DM perspective, when a lot of times my anxiety presents itself as a need to be good enough. So essentially what ends up happening is I feel like in order to be a good person, I need to present the best game that is possible. I need to have all the best role playing. I need to have all the stuff. And so essentially my insecurity is that when we're at the table and I'm not aware that you're still fully engaged, you're still really enjoying what's going on, but I don't have the normal social cues from you that you're engaged, that hits hard at my anxiety and that hits hard at my insecurity.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that definitely comes from understanding that at a table, you have multiple different dynamics that are all in play at once. And when you're working through these different situations and when we're going through and we're sharing all of these different things, there's so much more to the picture than just either the person asking for accommodations or a person trying to provide it or somebody, whatever's going on. And when you understand that there's a lot more to that picture, again, it helps us be more empathetic, helps us be more inclusive and be more patient with each other. Jen, did you want to just chime in with some stuff?
I'm just going to say in these situations, communication is your biggest thing. And as with much in life, right? Communicating, because how often do we just jump to taking everything personal? So you can work on it by not taking things personal, from coming from an informed place of empathy, but you can also come at it from being proactive for yourself. If you know you've got these things, let people know why that is. You know, I'm a fidgeter too, not just from ADHD, but you know, maybe if something bigger is going to be a distraction, I've got like a little 3x3 pop toy that I'm sitting here playing with back and forth, or that clicking noise might drive somebody crazy. So maybe I've got a little soft piece of cloth I'm twisting, something. But you know, being able to just have that conversation, like I need, or I've sensory overload, let's turn the lights down a little lower so it's not as distracting. Or if I put my head down, I'm not sleeping, I can't, I'm trying to focus in and I'd rather focus on just auditory. I'm trying to remove some things. Just having that conversation ahead of time is huge. But when you see somebody melting down, they might not know what's going on. Again, I hate to keep reiterating that, but most people just don't know, or they've gotten one diagnosis, so they think they're good, but there's like 3 other things going on that they just haven't worked on yet. You know, it's not the priority of their therapist, or they just aren't aware they need to work on it. So just compassion and empathy are huge. My friend used to call it grace and mercy. You know, just everyone around you is going through something. Absolutely everybody around you is going through something. You are probably going through something you don't even necessarily recognize yet. It just hasn't come forward yet. And just you know, these are your friends. These are people you like, or these are at least people who are like-minded individuals that you're trying to have a fun experience with. And keeping yourself framed into why you're here, and that these are human beings with needs just like you. I mean, you get a headache mid-game, you're not on your best, you might be cranky. You don't want somebody to just assume that you hate them. Right. And we're our worst critics. So we'll jump there for ourselves. But, you know, just understanding that we're human beings with human needs at all times. And we can work through this because the ultimate goal is fun, right? We're here to have fun. And don't be afraid to take a break. You know, if there's a car accident in front of you, you don't just bulldoze through it, right? You stop. So
no, absolutely.
Don't be afraid to stop and have a conversation. Oh, let's all break for cake and bio break. And hey, you want to come have a conversation with me over here in this corner, totally nonchalantly? What's going on? You know, don't be afraid. You know, sometimes it's a serious cry for help, and just someone saying, "Hey, I see you." That's huge. That's huge. Who hasn't been in a room full of people that they knew and felt very alone? Someone see me struggling, right? I don't know how to ask for help, so I'm acting out. Someone please say something. So just reach out. You want to have fun.
Absolutely. For this next section, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and throw a label. Basically, we're going to go through and talk about our different experiences and through our own mental health process and stuff. Audience, this does not give you the ability to diagnose anybody at your table. You are not a psychiatrist. Also, this is not for anybody to say, oh, I have that, which means I must have this condition because that's what that person has. Definitely as some of these things, if they do resonate with you, definitely bring that up with the appropriate professional who is trained and be able to look at the entire picture. But I definitely just wanted to share personal experiences with these different conditions, just to understand, like, hey, this is how some of this stuff might look, and to help you. Unfortunately, lack of understanding is definitely probably the enemy of all mankind. So this is going to be able to hopefully broaden some folks' horizons as to what some of these things might present as. And then after we go through the initial run through it, we're going to go through and talk about what some of the coping mechanisms that we have found that have been most effective in order to assist us. So that way, if you do have somebody who is struggling, or if you're struggling yourself, hopefully these show just some more options that aren't cookie cutter and that aren't stereotypical, to be able to take a look at it. So first condition we're looking at is anxiety. Like I said, for mine, that my anxiety goes off or stems from a place of insecurity, and basically can lead to me either spending a lot of money that I don't have on trying to create the best game possible, spending super late nights and basically affecting my work or my love life in order to sacrifice to make the game as good as possible. Because essentially what all that anxiety is doing is it's trying to earn the validation from the group that I am a good dungeon master. The other thing that I really resonated with me as far as anxiety is that anxiety just occupies bandwidth in your brain. And so essentially when it's going on, it might not look like me just being super scared or super stressed out or something like that, but it might look like me just not being able to come to a decision quickly, because the processing power that I actually have available to take a look at stuff, it's so limited because my brain is so occupied with so much other stuff that's going on. Would anybody else like to chime in? You guys don't have to. Lawrence is going to put his life on the line right now, and I'm totally down for that. But that's just definitely what my personal experience has been with anxiety. Does anybody want to talk about depression?
So I can't always separate my anxiety and my depression. I'll
They're
say
the
that
worst.
right now.
They are the worst twins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of mine presents as hypervigilance. Someone's tone changes. You might just be getting a headache, but I notice your affect is getting real flat. And it's me, and I don't know what I did to you, but can you just tell me what I did wrong? You know, it's kind of that like text. Somebody's like, okay, and you're just like, just okay. I wrote you a paragraph. Do you not love me anymore? You know, and it's kind of that thing. Or someone is disengaging. You know, do I suck? You know, and then it spirals. The anxiety is noticing everything. The anxiety is running through 1,000 different scenarios, and depression is going, yeah, it's because you're awful. And you're just sitting there, and outwardly you're just like, okay, make your rolls, guys. This is great. And inside you're like, I'm going to curl up in a ball and cry later. This is all I want to do. And it's exhausting. It is utterly exhausting. And sometimes that it looks like social anxiety, and it's not necessarily social anxiety. It's just I'm dealing with so much input and 30 browsers open in my head, and I don't know where the music's coming from. And my only reset is a human being reset of at least a nap. I've got to get somewhere else and get out of my head, which is, I've never managed that. But you know, you try. And so it's really difficult. It's really difficult. And sometimes that presents as, I'll talk faster and I'll talk more, and you're just not understanding me. So I'm going to over explain this thing because I think it's just, you've taken me wrong. And I don't think, you know, as somebody who's a little neurospicy, I think in metaphors. So I don't know that you're getting what I'm saying with this metaphor right now. And they're like, why are you arguing with me? Who's arguing with you? And I'm like, I'm not arguing. I just don't think you understand. You know? So it can come across as being a bit much. And everybody around you is like, are you having a psychotic break? And you're like, no,
Just a Tuesday.
It's just a Tuesday. My Valium's in the other room. Just go grab it. It's fine. You know, we'll be good. But yeah, so it could, especially when you have several diagnoses together, it can present in some really wild ways.
Well, and that's one of the things that's definitely interesting, especially about like anxiety and depression. And there's how we compensate, and there's how it looks for us when we're in private, and then there's how it looks for us in public. And so much of anxiety and depression, like for me, when I'm really depressed, I'm super extroverted, over the top, planning, going out, all this kind of stuff, because I'm trying to overcompensate for all the different depressive feelings and stuff that I'm having. And so it's the same thing. Like when people are like, oh yeah, Robin Williams severely suffered from this thing, as a lot of it presents in overcompensation in those areas and whatnot. And that's something to keep an eye out. One of the things that we had talked about before too is that for anxiety and depression, especially when somebody is struggling from something much deeper, like suicidal ideations or desires for self-harm, can be a lot of different jokes or off comments or character choices that are alluding to something. For me, when my suicidal ideations were really bad, and I didn't realize it. I knew that I was having suicidal ideations. It's something where I would linger on these thoughts for a couple hours a night because I thought it was therapeutic. I thought that exploring this was just me getting my little niche out and it was good. But then I also ended up spending so much more time at work. And for me, I didn't understand that it wasn't me actively trying to avoid my family at the time. It was me really failing to be able to process the next step of transitioning from work to home. And that was something that was really interesting to me because everybody talked about, when you have suicidal ideations or something like that, it's like, oh yeah, these guys just work, maybe you're going through depression. Oh, they just stay at work all this time, just to avoid their families because their family's stressing them out, stuff like that. And for me, because what it was told to me as far as avoiding home was what it looked like, I didn't understand that. No, the extra time that I thought I was taking at work just to be able to transition my brain into home was the sign of, oh no, I'm struggling with so much more that's going on. And so that's definitely something that you want to keep an eye out at the table and whatnot, is that when you see somebody who, I mean, does anybody have any really good examples of when they've seen of different comments or different specific things where you're like, that didn't seem like that came from a joking place. That seemed like that came from a hurt place.
Yeah, I've got a lot of those. In a game, I had a player who was playing the annoying paladin. This was, way back in the day, the early 90s.
The lawful stupid paladin?
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
And another player had just had enough of it. And
it was a mess.
It looked like it was in character until it didn't look like it was in character.
Mm-hmm.
And it just came out as, a tirade against the person. I didn't know how bad it was that night until the end of the night, when a couple of players talked, and the person playing the paladin said, was he role playing? Because that sounded like a personal attack.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in talking with the players, we didn't know a lot about mental health in gaming spaces and inclusivity and any of that sort of stuff back in the days of second edition.
Mm-hmm.
So much though, I still have the printout of where three of the players at my table, they wrote sort of this 17-page document on how to kill this guy's character with contingency plans. And the character's name was Durus Aggravain, and they called him Durus Aggravating
mm-hmm.
all the time. And so the title of this document, I still have it. It's called A Dark Day for Durus Aggravain. And I keep that as sort of a reminder on how to diffuse things before they even get to that point, or, address certain things at the table before the game even starts. As a game master, you're also a facilitator. And it's not that everybody has to have every tool in the box, but you should have some.
Mm-hmm.
You should have some awareness of, hey, it may not just be a personality clash. I mean, somebody might be going through a time in their lives where you just need to take a moment, and it could be as simple as, hey, is everyone feeling okay today? Is this what we want to do? I know we're all here to have fun, but is gaming really the catalyst for our fun tonight? Should we do something else?
Mm-hmm.
To just, get on the same level with one another.
Well, I think now you would understand the personalities at the table and get those clues of, you have a person who wants to feel really important because life is crap right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you have another person who is in a similar situation, and you have those people playing it out at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And learning how to balance that it takes time, takes skill, takes practice, but yeah, that's
something that a well-educated an informed DM can go through and sense what the emotional state of their table is, and then be able to work through that. And it's something that I definitely like. I mean, it's when you find a DM that can do that, it's amazing,
Right.
but it is something that is so hard to develop because it requires so much interpersonal communication skills, emotional intelligence, and then the ability to just be able to read a lot of those subtle cues of when people are talking, with their body languages, stuff like that. Because again, what the societal norms are is when Andrea is knitting, she's not paying attention to me. That is what the societal norm is. And that's where it takes so much more education and experience in order to be able to understand, nope, this is 3 layers deep, where she is knitting in order to pay attention to what is going, or crocheting. Am I messing that up? Knitting, crocheting?
I do both.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. And so that's one of the things that definitely takes so much time and experience to be able to actually work out and have at a table and work through. And it's a rough situation.
Well, I think we've been gaming long enough that this term I don't think existed, or at least I wasn't aware of it. But the idea of having that session 0 with your group, and I mean, when you sit down, we've all sat down to make characters for a new campaign, and you sit down, and that's really a get to know you time. It's really not about gaming per se. It's about getting to know who the people are that are going to be at your table. And so I'm a huge believer in even an inexperienced GM, and even somebody who is learning how to read a room and emotional states and all of that. But having that session 0 and being able to put all that up front ahead of time is probably one of the biggest tools, I think, to help everybody at the table grow.
So that's when you guys remember when the RPG consent form came on out?
Yeah.
So when that came out, it was kind of interesting because there's a lot of different opinions on it. And this is, again, one of the interesting where it's understanding that there is just different point of views on it and stuff like that. There's a lot of people that viewed that as, this is going to give, somebody's going to take this, fill it out, set it down in front of me and say, hey, these are all the accommodations that I need you to make for me for my game. That is a very disrespectful way to go about that, versus, hey, I went ahead and I filled this out because it's an easier way for me to be able to communicate some of the things that are going to help me be the best player at your table. Would you mind going through this with me and being able to, and we can talk about ways that this, that we can have like the best environment going forward. And that was something that when I really paused for a moment and I really thought about it, I was like, this is actually really great, especially when I'm playing with people that I don't know, to be able to be like, hey guys, I don't want all of your dirty secrets or anything like that. I just want to ask for you guys to help make me aware of things that are going to take away from your experience.
Yep.
I'm definitely approaching it from that position, rather than a set of demands that I have to meet at the table, as being just like, hey, how do I get this group to be the best that it can be? Was one of those like aha moments for me of like, okay, this is the right way to go about this. This is the fair way. And the way that I can get out what I wanted, which is to have a great game with everybody.
Yeah.
What you got, Jen? I know you got something there.
And just to reiterate, not everybody can advocate for themselves that way. Sometimes just an anonymous something, and that's where that form comes in, because there was a lot of people who argued, well, you're just supposed to have a conversation. I don't know you. I'm not going to talk about that time I was raped. I'm sorry. And all the boundaries that have come out of that. I don't feel comfortable in that. You're not a safe space yet. And being able to create that safe space, not everybody's good at that. Another thing we've used in games is what we call the X card. And literally it's a physical, they don't even have to say anything. It's a physical object they can put down, and it might not be a card. It might be somebody grabs a stuffed animal and throws it in the middle of the table. Nobody asks a single question. What scene is happening? Stops, and you flash forward. And that's a great way to be respectful to people. Maybe there's triggers they don't know they have. I've just had some repressed childhood memories that came around from when I was like 4 years old. I mean, that was a long time ago, right? So you just never know what somebody has in the back of their head that could go off. If you're dealing with people who have been in different PTSD or CPSD positions, whether that's childhood trauma, whether that's soldiers, whether that's somebody who's lived through a hurricane, right? And their house was decimated by a tornado. You just don't know what's going to trigger it sometimes. The most innocuous thing, you're describing a smell. Smell is one of the biggest memory enhancers that we've got. The smell of peanut butter can bring up like 6 different memories for me simultaneously. So just being able to have some kind of stop it right now. We're not going to discuss it. I know I'm safe to do this. Nobody's going to be mad. The scene stops. We move forward. That can be a really powerful tool. But I think the most powerful tool in any DM or player's box, and I recommend this for everybody, is finding some kind of mental health first aid that teaches you how to recognize those issues and how to have a conversation about those issues. I literally, if you Google mental health first aid, it's an organization that does, a lot of them do free classes. A lot of states and institutions will put funding forward and they're open to the public. It's like a 1-day thing. And the certification on it, if you're going to use it for something, lasts like 3 years, I think. But it teaches you how to have those uncomfortable conversations, just not even at your gaming table, but at your whole life. But if you see like one of your players sitting outside after your game, like on your stoop, and the game ended half an hour ago and he's just sitting there staring off into space, like, how do you approach that and not make it worse? Being able to have those tools in your toolbox before you need them, it's just like a regular Red Cross first aid. Your kid scrapes his knee. What do you do? For some of us, it's obvious. For some of us, it's not. And that's okay. But I think being willing to learn, being willing to stay coachable when somebody says, hey, the way you're dealing with that is making me uncomfortable, and not taking that personally, but taking that as how can I be better? Those are like really good tools to have in your toolbox. And then being able to know, like in the country, the mental health hotline has moved to 988, I believe.
Yes.
For both text and phone call to make it even easier. Having those little bit of resources that you can hand out to your people. There's whole organizations, if you guys don't know about Take This, it's literally mental health organization geared towards gamers. And it's based off that It's Dangerous Alone, Take This. So having those resources that you can hand your friends, huge. They might not want to talk to you. They might feel self-conscious, but getting them to, 988 or the Good Samaritan's hotline or whatever that resource is, really helpful. And you might find that you take that stuff away from the game table and use it with other people too, but, without having to play armchair psychologist, or, worrying that you're going to make a situation worse, or somebody's going to walk away and you're going to ruin a friendship, or whatever that concern is. Being able to help somebody and it's just like carrying around Band-Aids in your purse in case somebody next to you falls or gets a blister. It's just a very small measure that we can all do to make it more inclusive and better for everybody, and come from that place of empathy, that informed empathy.
Absolutely. One of the things that I definitely want to highlight out is it is going to be your natural reaction a lot of times, especially if you're coming from like a place of like deep insecurity, like I do. To take things personally, the biggest thing you can do is walk away for a bit. If somebody throws the stuffed animal over inside of the middle of the table, and you're either you're the DM or you're a player who's super engaged, who was like, oh my gosh, that was the best role player, whatever, ever. And all of a sudden you're like, why would you stop my fun? Or if you're a DM and you're sitting here, like, I'm now in panic mode because I had this thing planned out this way. Be like, cool, take 10-minute break, walk away, do breathing, do whatever it is to just kind of calm down, and then sit there and understand, okay, we were about to enter into a, scene or a role play, whatever it is. We're about to enter into an area where this person was about to bring a lot of real life energy into this that could have been destructive. And they were aware enough in order to say, hey, we shouldn't go down this road. Understand that, respect that, compose yourself, and then go through and just figure out what the next step of it's going to be, and rework your story and go about it and be on your feet and be that amazing dungeon master that you're going to be. Go for it, Jen.
I would also say, so like right after I leave here, I'm literally just now, a downtime is starting for a LARP that we just recently joined and started up in our area. Meet with your players outside of your game.
Yeah.
They're human beings. Get to know them too. It goes a long way. Somebody might not know that maybe they have autistic tendencies and they don't know it. And you don't know if it's autism or it's something else, right? But as you get to know them and you realize that's just how they are, you're going to take that a lot less personally. And I say that for everybody in your life. Get to know them. That coworker that is weird, you don't understand, and you think that they hate you, have lunch with them.
That's super scary.
Yeah, but you can find something with everybody. And my joke is, if we just like chocolate chip cookies, we can debate chewy versus crunchy. And we're having a conversation now. And now you're seeing me as a human being. And as soon as you see me as a human being, there's respect we're building. There's rapport we're building. Now we've got a relationship. And now we're like, okay, but we both like chocolate chip cookies. How bad can this be? And that's a really general, like, example, but
Literally a cookie cutter example.
Literally a cookie cutter example. Thank you. Yes, you stole my joke. All right. That was good though. Yeah. So, I mean, even if it's just your human beings who would rather shower at night than in the morning, I mean, there's some foot in the door, right? It's just like when you go to a company and you're like, yeah, I'm a part-time admin, but that's a foot in the door to something more. Same concept, but with people. We are all human beings. We are all struggling to pay our bills. We are all struggling with multiple priorities, multiple issues that we're trying to work with, multiple schedules that we're trying to struggle. We've got spouses, we've got kids, we've got friends, we've got family that, maybe hasn't figured out that they're part of the problem too, right? Like, you don't know what other people are going through unless you ask.
Absolutely.
So, ask.
We are running over on time. So right now we're going to do speed round, favorite coping mechanisms or favorite support things that you do that either, hey, this is my favorite coping mechanism for at the table, or this is my favorite thing that I do or this is something I found very effective to help support other people. Andrea, you're up first. Everybody gets one as we keep going around the horn.
My favorite thing to say is, if I see somebody upset, do you have everything you need? And for me, I have learned to advocate that I am a fidgeter, and so I advocate for that for myself.
Nice. Donny?
My coping mechanism
Is me.
Oh, no. So there's something I learned about myself. I'll keep it quick. I can't do anything unless there's an audience.
For the record, I really don't care how long we go. I was just trying to be respectful of everyone's time. So by all means, you can go and expand out.
I won't go nuts, but so what I mean by an audience, even a deadline can be an audience because someone will be there at the end. So I like to use things like that as my coping mechanism to actually get stuff done. And like, I won't paint miniatures sitting by myself. I mean, it's just not something I want to do. That's it.
Yeah.
Nice.
And drugs. Sorry.
Prescription, right?
Jen, what do you got?
I like to throw out compliments like confetti. I find people are more adaptive and genuine ones. I like that shirt. Your eyes are pretty. That statement was really intelligent. I liked the way you said that. Don't make them all about looks. That goes somewhere dark too sometimes, especially people have body dysmorphia or some kind of identity dysmorphia, sexual dysmorphias, things like that, eating disorders. Keep the societal standards down. But I really like the way you said that. Not only does that make me feel better about myself because I'm making somebody else happy, and that boosts my mood and gets me a little out of my anxiety loop because I'm thinking about what would make somebody else happy. But then I find my people are in a better place. They're happier. I've just given them a little boost of happy chemicals in their brain, and they're more likely to also be a little kinder to everybody around them and give them a little more of the benefit of the doubt, because when we're hungry and angry and have headaches and we're miserable and we've got all this stuff in our heads and we're inside here, we are not at our best. So if you just keep drawing them out just a little bit more, it's not really reverse psychology, but it's kind of along that lines. Like, I'm modeling what I want you to be, and you find they rise to that occasion.
Absolutely. My favorite support thing that I'll do, it's actually kind of funny because when Andrea.
Yes, good job.
There we go. I think it's the first time I've gotten it right today. When she was like, "Oh, I'm Donnie's, favorite coping mechanism." That's actually something that I really advocate for. If I have a player who has a known who's somebody who has self-identified, like, "Hey, I struggle with this." I'm like, cool. I'm going to partner you up with hopefully somebody at the table who you feel comfortable communicating whatever it is that you're going through. And they're going to sit there and they're just going to be your advocate. And if you need to get up and you need to walk away, they can play your character. If you have, a really, really poor mental health day and you need to take it to yourself, you're going to be able to talk to that person. And that person's just going to be like, "Hey, I'm advocating on their behalf. They're not having a good day today. This is how we're going to come up with a solution." That's my favorite support mechanism to go through and just give people and say, okay, hey, this is how we're going to go through, and help make it so that way we can keep the game moving, keep what everybody came here to do, but give as much support to that person, again, by somebody who hopefully they're able to actually talk with. My favorite coping mechanism that I do for myself is actually, especially when I was streaming, the day of was a healthy diet and no caffeine. So that was a big one that I definitely noticed, that the more caffeine and junk food I ate the day before a stream, which was, a big like performance thing, the more jittery I would be and the more scatterbrained I would be. And so for that day, like I definitely enjoyed McDonald's a lot of other days, but for that day, I would really try and eat healthy during that day, eat very clean. And I would keep my caffeine very, very low that day. And I drink a ton of water. And it was interesting because it definitely felt like I was thinking slower, but it also felt like I was thinking smoother, which is what I wanted for the performance. I didn't want to be scatterbrained through everything. It was okay to be slow, but as long as it was smooth as we were kind of moving through and everything. I would say, Jen, it looked like you were like holding your breath when I was talking about my favorite support thing.
It just made me think because, I was telling everybody that's on the panel today that I was finishing homework just before I got on here, but I had to keep stopping because in my head I was rehearsing conversations we might have on here, because one of my personal coping mechanisms is having those conversations so that I'm role playing in my head what might happen. Mm-hmm. And it really helps me when everybody sticks to the conversation that I rehearsed in my head. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek, right? But you do it different ways, because you're like, what if this person goes at me really aggressively? All right, let me get my thoughts together before this happens. And then nothing happens, and you're like, somebody could have read at least one of the scripts I made up. Like, I handed them out. Why weren't you following my script? So
that's how I definitely know my anxiety was going crazy, is I spend so much brain power doing that rather than like productive things.
Yeah, no, I literally, I'm like in the middle of my chapter and I'm like, oh, that's a good topic. I should bring that up in there. I wonder how that conversation would go. And I'm like, oh my God, finish your chapter so you can do your homework and get on the stream. But you're just trying so hard, but in your head, you're running all these scenarios. That just made me think of that. I was trying not to laugh because I didn't want to seem I was laughing at what you were saying, but yeah. I
thought I just said something super offensive and I was like, oh, here comes Jen.
I know. That's part of the counselor training, is that nice supportive, like,
yeah, you got to work on your poker face, definitely.
I have no poker face. If I don't say it, my face will say it for me.
One of the questions that we had brought up in chat was, question for y'all. I'm in a game with a few autistic players. They will often go off topic from the game. And they talked a little bit farther down in there. They were talking about like way off topic about non-game stuff. I've had one game with an autistic player before. It was one of the Gooey pickup games and stuff. And so I know the techniques and stuff that I kind of brought up for that. I know Donny and Andrea, you guys talked about that you had lots of different people through your tables. I think, Jen, you were also talking about you had a few people. You guys want to talk about some of the strategies and stuff that you guys have developed? And the caveat to this is everyone's very specifically individualized in this. And so definitely don't think that this is the one size fits all solution. It's, at the end of the day, it's assess your player, have a conversation with them about it, what they think is going to be most helpful, and then enact that plan. But here are some suggestions that you might bring up.
I was a teacher, so I definitely had students with autism in my class. I taught inclusion classrooms, and I'm licensed in special ed. Mm-hmm. So my personal favorite way to re-engage somebody who is rabbit holing in excitement on something that is way over there on the other side of the field is just a tap on the shoulder. Obviously, I've already known the student and that touch is okay. But, so if a player at your table is going off the rails in a great way, do we need to take 5 so that we can come back to the game? Mm-hmm. But I found that little tiny nudge or a hand, again, if they're okay with touch. If not, it's, eye contact, name, Donny, do you need to take a minute so we can get back to the game? But not being like, hey, can you shut up so we can get back to the game? Like, not that, but like, do we all need to take a minute? Let's pause, take a minute, refocus.
I think it's important that you're using a grounding technique to establish the line of communication. That's something that it's definitely something. It's something that you kind of think about as kind of hard as a DM. The last game that I played, this is all with soldiers, so I wasn't worried about it. One of the guys was getting off topic, and I threw a piece of pizza at him.
Right.
We also started drinking mead very early in the evening. So that was appropriate for that setting. But it is one of those things that when you're up and behind the wall, that's something we're trying to figure out, that kind of grounding technique. I definitely see as a challenge for DMs and stuff.
Well, and like you were saying, the buddy system.
Mhm.
I mean, we all know each other when we sit at our tables and play, and somebody will go, and back to game. And literally just like make a joke of it. So I would say those two things have been, for me, probably the best, because I'm typically the one who will rabbit hole in excitement on another topic that's way over there because I got reminded of something.
No, absolutely.
So it happens a lot. So, somebody brought up in the chat about how to do it in a digital game. It's pretty easy to use the grounding technique there, and just call them out by their name. Like, hey, I want to hear more about that. Do you want to talk about it now, or can we save it for later? And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Obviously, everyone's a little different. I found that both Andrea and I, we coach soccer, where we volunteer for a local club here in Denver, and we spend a lot of time, with children who can go off the rails. So it's a very fun time for us, and a lot of the techniques that we have in gaming, they translate to sport and vice versa. And a lot of those, as a GM behind the screen, which I primarily do, if somebody's talking and going off the rails, I will absolutely stop what I'm doing, stop looking down at the material, and focus on them and listen to them until they're done. If it's causing, a stir amongst the rest of the table,
My bad.
Sometimes, if I'll let it go too far, and Andrea, she'll be the one to go, she'll put a hand up. Hey,
It's universal. It
yeah,
works.
it works. You put a hand up, like, I have a question. Even if somebody's hyperfixated, that is a very, very good tool to just, hey, I have a question. And if you just hold your hand up.
It works in Best Buy even. Like, it works everywhere. Like, you just raise your hand in the grocery store. Someone will come to you, I promise.
Like,
Literally before the stream, I was like, hey, if you guys want to say something, I'm going to play Traffic Cop. Just raise up your hand and I'll make sure that we get around to you. So,
yeah. And in online games, everywhere else, even if you have a question, somebody will likely see you, find that moment where somebody who's talking or hyperfixating might take a pause. They might even see you and say, oh, I'm sorry, you had a question. And that question can be as simple as, hey, are we going to game, or are we going to do this? Because I'm good with either one. I just want to know where we're going.
Absolutely. Jen, what you got for us?
I play a lot online, and I'm that person that rabbit holes. So what I do is usually I pick another player and I'm in their DMs rabbit holing. And they're good. They can switch their focus back and forth, and we're having that conversation on the sidelines. It's not interrupting anybody else. We're still just as engaged, but especially because it's text-based, it's a quick blah, 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 blah. What do you think? And so we've got that side game. And I find for people, I've got ADHD that was never outwardly hyperactive, but that's why they've kind of dropped the inattentive and it's all just ADHD, because inside I'm hyperactive. My brain doesn't stop. My biggest problem is sleep, because I can't shut that up. Right. And so being able to have that multiple focus helps me focus on the game and not interrupt other people while still having that rabbit hole. And don't be afraid to ask them what is their special interest right now, because a lot of us will have a couple different things we want to info dump on all the time. For instance, I could go on about tardigrades for hours right now. I love them. They're fascinating. Also known as water bears. They're so cute. They're like if somebody had a rough description of a bear in paper mache. They're amazing. So, but so don't be afraid to pull that into the game. And maybe you're like, I'd really like to hear your ideas on how we can make that a fantasy setting. So it's not, I got something wrong and now we're going to spend 3 hours arguing about my facts I got wrong. But do you have a special interest that I can tie in here? Or maybe the puzzle's answer is whatever special interest they have right now. And my other thing is give them time frames. So my son is ADHD and it's like, oh, I got to tell you all about this. Okay, the first half hour I come home, I have to decompress. After that, while I'm making dinner, come in the kitchen and you can tell me whatever you want. Give me the phrase or the word, the code word, so you don't forget about what you want to talk about. Butterfly. Got it. Butterfly. Half an hour later, after I've calmed down and I can focus, butterfly. What are we talking about, kid? Let's go. Chop carrots and tell me, right? So giving them that space, or maybe they need a break in the middle of the game. You know, so you've had pizza, you've goofed around, you've had an hour of gameplay, schedule half an hour for dessert. You've got cake or cookies or something going on and a bio break. And let's talk about this topic. What's the topic today, right? Give them an assignment. Bring me a new topic. Let's have fun with this, right? And it's just another accommodation, just like if someone's in pain and has to stand up and walk around, or somebody needs to get up and refocus for a minute. Give them that space. I find that a lot working with college students. Tell me everything you want personal right now. Cool. All right, now we got to go run this event. Let's have fun. You know, now we're making mosaic tiles. This will be great. You'll love this. You know, so giving spaces and hard shifts into things sometimes is really helpful, because I've got this really exciting thing I want to tell you about the new tardigrades I just found, and I'll get half an hour in an hour.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got time. Ooh, I can't wait to tell you. It'll be so exciting. So sometimes just giving them that space to express themselves, it's huge. It's huge.
No, absolutely. In true Gooey fashion, we've run super overtime. I want to go ahead and give a quick round the table for resources that are available that people are aware of. Jen, I know you have a few. Donny and Andrea, if you guys want to go ahead and put out a few, I'm going to go ahead and put up Donny and Andrea here for you.
Go ahead.
There's two resources that we love. You guys know about Motorcycle Relief Project. That's probably one that's near and dear to us. They take veterans, and so many of our gaming community are veterans. They take veterans on motorcycle rides that are supported with mental health professionals for vets and first responders. I could go on and on about it, but I won't. But they're amazing, and I love them. Donnie's going to put, are you going to put something?
I'll put it in the chat.
He's going to put it in the chat because they're amazing.
Thank you. I was trying to do that. So,
and the other one is, he's a Gooey Cuber, and Keaton runs You Don't Fight Alone. And that is a awesome resource as well. They do, you know, so I call them survival kits, and I'm getting the name wrong. Sorry. But you know, like tactile, all of those things. And it's a podcast that literally, and interviews of You're Not Alone, and good resources through there. And those are probably my two favorite resources that I can go on and on and on about.
Yeah. If you're a veteran or first responder that has any inkling towards motorcycle riding and camping, and have any type of issues that you want to talk through or work through,
with other people,
motorrelief.org is a place that I know that it helps people.
It saved lives.
Yeah.
thank you so much. Jen?
I mentioned a couple earlier, mental health.
Bring them back up again.
Mentalhealthfirstaid.org. That's where you can find free one-day classes. You can even train to be someone who teaches other people if it might be a passion you didn't know you had. If you'd like to be able to help but don't want to have to go through an 8-year degree, you know, that's a really great resource. And they teach you tools to be able to recognize somebody who's in trouble, how to have that conversation with both strangers and people you know, and then how to find them resources. And then the other one is takethis.org. It was one I discovered at Gen Con through the Wormwood Table people, actually. And it's literally mental health for gamers. That's what the entire organization is about. And then just as a reminder to everybody that 988 is the new mental health hotline. If you or somebody you know is going through something, and it doesn't have to just be suicide, it can just be something really hard, to be able to either text or call 988 and let your friends know about it. Leave cards everywhere. You can print them off the internet. Leave them everywhere. You might save a life. And then don't be afraid to reach out to your local public health facilities and your insurance companies and find resources. They are all around you, and people want to help. Don't be afraid to be alone.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this discussion today. Thank you, everybody in the audience. We wish everybody a really great day. And everybody all at once, may all your adventures be
sticky.
Well done. We appreciate everybody, and have yourselves a great day. Bye.